we are going to see about attributes of data frame objects. Frame objects, you can use that attributes to find the informations related to it, like a size, data type, and so on. So if you want to see the attributes, we have to use the formula data frame object dot attribute name. Some attributes description is given. Index indicates the row label of the data frames, and columns attributes indicate the column label of data frame. And axis means is return the both axis, that means column and rows both will be displayed. And t types is written the types of data, and size is represent that number of elements, and shapes is written the tuple format in that number of rows and columns in the number, how many rows, how many columns present in that particular data frame. Values written that values of data frame, and empty it's indicate whether the data frame is empty or not. And n dimension is written the number of axes. Always is a 2 in the pandas data frame objects, because it's a contains the two axes, rows and columns. And T, capital T, is a transpose, that means swapping the rows and columns. Let's see one by one. So the first ones, we are going to see that how to use that columns, axis, and then T types. So general format is mentioned, and see here data frame object is created with 3 rows and 2 columns. Column titles name, age, and rows labels or A, B, C. And df dot index, it indicates us number of that row labels it will be displayed, and columns displays that columns labels, and axis indicate the both rows and columns labels, and data types indicates that types of data in each column. So string is consists of object, so name object, and age is integer. Next we have to see size, shape, number of dimensions attributes. Shape is written the tuple represents how many rows and columns in the particular data frame object, and shape is the number of elements, total number of elements, and dimension is written the number of actions. This is general format. And see here data frame is created, and tf dot shape is returns the total number of rows and column, 3 rows, 2 columns, and dimensions is a 2 axis, row axis and column axis. So data frame always 2 axis, series is a 1 dimension, so always axis is 1 dimension, but data frame objects always 2. And size to overall elements, so Rosie 20, Rani 25, Priya 26, totally 6 elements present in this data frame object. Whether the created data frame is empty or not. If it is empty, return true, otherwise it return false. So general form for empty is data frame object dot empty. So data frame is created with 3 rows, 2 columns. So data is available, so it's not empty. So we are checking, while we are checking df dot empty functions is written false, because data frame contain the values to 6 elements is there, so it return false. And to get the values of data frames, you can use the attributes data frame object dot values. So data frame value you want to access, we can give the data frame object dot value, so it display the values in the nested list format. And transpose values of data frame. So transpose means we can exchange this rows into columns into rows. So swapping this rows and columns, that is the transpose. So general form for transpose of data frame object is data frame object dot capital T. Say here data frame is printed. So row labels are ABC and column labels are name age. But after transposing, you see the output row label placed into the column labels and column exchanged into the rows. So transpose nothing but just swapping this rows and columns. And to get the number of rows, we can use the function length. So general form for length is length of data frame object. So length of objects is written the number of rows. So totally here 3 rows. So I written 3. Functions is used to count the non-null values in the data frames. We can pass the two argument for the count functions 0 or 1. Default is 0. If 0 means it count the non-null values for each columns, and if we pass that argument 1 means it will count the non-null values for each row. So general format for count function is data frame object dot count. We can pass either 0 or 1. If it won't pass means considers 0 as argument. So here the data frame object is display and df dot count of 0 means so count that non-null values for each columns name columns 3 and age columns 2 because it contains one number. And next def dot count of 1 is passed, so counting that for each row. So a row contains 2 values row c20 and b rows contains uh, Ronnie and then its age and Priya not a number, so it displays 1. Index uh, minimum index value and maximum values from the data frame. So two functions used. IDX minimum function is used to find the minimum index. How we find minimum index means which value is minimum in that column, which value is the minimum. Their index is the minimum index. And maximum index means which one contain the maximum value in the column. That corresponding index is the maximum index. And while you are using this function, we must use only the numbers values. We should not give any other format. It must be a number. So general form for IDX means data frame object at IDX means and for IDX max data frame object at IDX max. So see that data frame is printed with 3 rows and 2 columns name CS IP. So IDX mean here CS comes 1 because the minimum value of CS column is 82. So CS minimum index is 1, the corresponding index. And IP written 3 because the IP column minimum value is 75. So corresponding index is 3 is displays a minimum. Likewise, maximum index means CS value maximum value is 94. So corresponding index is 3 is printed. And IP columns maximum value is 95. So corresponding index 2 is displayed. Functions. Relations info function display the informations type of data frames and index values of each rows. What's the index assigned for that is will be displayed and number of columns will be displayed and data columns and values and counting of non-auto number will be displayed and data types of each columns will be displayed and how many memories is used by the particular data frame objects and RAM also will be displayed. So general form for info function is data frame object dot info. So see here, data frame is created. Its object name is tf with the 2 columns, 3 rows, and info functions is show that type of data frames, and index is 3 rows named 1 2 3, and columns totally number of columns 2, and CS contains not a number is not a number is available, so counting is 2, and IP also contain one not a number, so skip it, and remaining counted, and its values 2 normal values, and data type is both is a float, and memory usage for that 72 bytes for info functions. So data frame is printed, and its type of data frame is mentioned, and each index value is mentioned. So index row label is 1 2 3, number of entries 3, and data columns number is total number is 2, and null value is counted for each columns, and the type of data is shown. First one column is integer, second is object, is another one is object, one integer and object, because CS columns contain the string a, so it's considered as a object, and memory usage is mentioned, how many memory is used by this particular. Describe functions. It gives the following information. Count the non-number, non-null values in the columns will be counted and display for each column, and mean calculate the mean and display for each columns. Its mean is nothing but the average value of that columns, and standard deviations also will be displayed for each columns, and minimum value of each column will be displayed, and percentage of value in the column will be displayed. Percentage means 25% or 50% and 70 percentages of data will be displayed, and max is the maximum value of columns will be displayed. General form for describe function is data frame object dot describe, and see that output. So first is data frame object is display, and describe functions count display mean standard deviations and minimum value of both column display, and percentage is also display, and maximum value of both column also display. Thank you.